Can everyone see the board? I always have to ask that question. Okay, good. Um, so just before we jump in, I just want to ground ourselves back in. Um, we have these success metrics, and these are kind of the brainstorm list. These will get kind of finalized and honed. But what success looks like for goal number 3, we're focused on strong leadership. Hold on one sec. Michelle just texted me. Yes. Um, so for goal number 3, strong leadership, develop and implement collective leadership framework. Some of the how we would measure success are kind of more of, or in this case, we heard a lot about the adoption of standards uh, or requirements for local school boards to have equity committees. So that when we get that, that would be a success. Heard a lot about the importance of whether it's staff, teachers, admin, mental health therapists. Just think all the professionals that help educate, increasing the number from BIPOC communities, but also it's really important that we support those who are already there. So maintaining them as well. So ultimately, something like this probably gets split out into 2 different success metrics, but that's okay. And then we have these 2 more binary ones, kind of adopting a diversity dashboard to better measure representation, again, of staff, leadership, admin, other professionals. And then another one, develop and implement a collective leadership framework. Now there may be others, and that's okay. But I just kind of wanted to ground ourselves back in what we thought success at this stage looked like. Um, I'm going to scroll here. Everyone, is it big enough for folks? Can they? Hey, how are you?
Made it.
Director Cole, you made it. Good. We're slow. We haven't really gotten into it yet, so it's perfect timing.
Okay.
We pulled over a couple strategies or initiatives when we did the student that we thought represented a bit more around our goal around leadership, and that was meet and deepen relationships with COSA, OEA, TSPC, and the Education Advancement Council. Another one, promote and support rulemaking related to equity training for district leadership and classroom educators. Another one, research and develop kind of the most impactful process, so a little of best practice research here around setting up local school board equity committees. I think it goes to that success metric that we talked about in just a bit. So we're already 3 in. So look at us. We got lucky on goal 3 here. So I think similar to last time, let's just get ideas. There are no wrong ideas. Representative Arenas, as a student representative, I think throw your ideas. What do you want the school board to focus on? And I think folks like Chair Howard can help kind of steer us, because I'm in the same position as you. Is that within our scope? Is that out of our scope? But we can get those ideas out. Same to you, Director Colonna and Director Wheeler. So I think with that, we'll jump right in and we'll start brainstorming. We'll go to about, let's go to about 135, 140, and then we'll talk about, okay, let's narrow these 10 to 15 down or whatever we end up with into what are the up to 5 we think is most important to focus on this next year.
Chris, is there a way we can look at the goal language while we're working?
I can. One of the challenges is when I do that.
Oh, there it is.
It's up there. Well, how about this? I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to move it down.
That'll work.
And then I'm trying to keep it in a space where we can still, the notes are legible, right? They need to be big enough for us to all see. Representative Arenas is probably the only one with the right eyes. Us older folks, this becomes more of a challenge. Something you get to go look forward to. Does that help?
Yeah, that's at least from what my view is. It's down below, nice and big, and then the others are up and very legible.
Okay. So why don't we start from here and brainstorm?
Framework. Collective. That word collective is important for us, I think.
I have a quick processing question. We had identified different strategies, or not necessarily a goal, just above. Are we keeping our brainstorming centered around what we identified previously that is above? Are those what we're putting in here? Or are we thinking of other ideas outside of the brainstorming that we've done?
And when you say above, are you talking about these kind of 3 white sticky notes?
Are they the same as I guess my question is, are they the same as the 3 above? Because I was a little slow on tracking.
Oh, okay. So what we have above here, in the gray box, those are our initial attempts at success metrics. So Michelle gave a good analogy here. Success metric is, you know, you're successful when you build a house. The house is complete. What you do to build the house are your strategies or your initiatives or your actions. That's what we're putting in below. So above is how we would measure success, with refinement, of course. And below is what we're going to do, what specific actions we're going to take, what initiatives we're going to carry on, those types of things. Does that help?
It does. It does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Chris, we're still focusing on the brainstorm right here.
We're brainstorming around strategies or initiatives or actions you want to take this year related to goal 3, strong leadership, develop and implement. So again, we're in the phase where no bad ideas. Just if you think of something, hey, this would be a great action to take on or an initiative for us to focus on, we can get it out there. I'll look for, obviously, Chair Howard and Director Gill to kind of steer whether we're like, ooh, that's outside the scope of the State Board of Education, but get them out for sure.
Strong leadership.
So right now we have the meeting and deepening relationship with other entities around school administration, teacher leadership, teacher standards, and sort of retention through the advance and hiring.
But when we say that, Kimberly, I don't see hiring here as one of our brainstorms. Do you think we should put something in about hiring? There's training
yes.
and relationships and research.
My question then, I mean, I don't want to, let's put something about hiring. I don't know how to capture that other than what I've heard Second Vice Chair Wheeler say, which is around the hiring practices at the state and the district level, because that influences leadership.
And could we maybe say hiring best practices?
Yeah.
For a diverse workforce?
And I think there was also, is this where we talked about identifying strategies for retention of BIPOC educators and administrators?
I think just to capture, because we can prioritize later, what's within our realm of influence or authority around grow your own programs supporting those or providing guidance or leadership from the state board level on grow your own programs. I'm looking at Representative Arenas and I'm thinking about how are we, developing a clear pathway for the next generation to be educators.
Can I just, it's like a question, I guess. So for the retention of BIPOC staff and admin and teachers, I was on my break. I was thinking of I was actually thinking about one of my teacher that we had at my school, and like that teacher impacted my sister a lot because it was her advisor, and he was part of the LGBTQ community. However, he received a lot of backlash for how he identified from a lot of the students at my school. And so he ended up having to move schools constantly. And he never found a workforce where he really felt welcomed in. So I felt like, is there a way to not only include, the BIPOC community, but also the LGBTQ community within our statement?
I do. So I just want to tie in. Is this the leadership goal? Is that what we're on?
Sorry. Goal, goal number 3, strong leadership.
Okay. I do wonder about some of these. So this is one of those areas where statutorily this work around diversifying the educator workforce is held by the Educator Advancement Council. And they do deep work in this area. And much of what's been placed on here, they have programs underway and they're funded to do those. And there's quite a bit there. So I think part of our work might be more about the connecting with them and understanding where we can plug in. I think that there's some around the kind of CTE programs that we could create, that we could work towards having more of in the state, that are focused on the education sector careers. That might be more in the state board and ODE's realm. I did talk to a group of the Caucus of Color, OSBA Caucus of Color last night, and a COSA Administrators of Color group, and was getting some feedback on our equity committee idea and the budget committee ideas. And one of the others that they threw in there was that many school districts, like the state board, have student voice at the table. And they asked us to work towards including more of that, making sure that that's happening at every school district, and even to work towards having a voting member that is a student.
So I'm gonna write stuff and say stuff, and if my language is totally off, you guys got to help me here. So I heard identify, support local districts in bringing student voices to table. Help me refine that.
To the school board.
School board, okay. And so the role the state board of ed would be is there may be ideas, there may be a way for you guys to support actual local school boards in kind of formally, it's kind of the governance, right, of this, and having student.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to put governance in there. We'll know what it means, but yep. Okay.
And we haven't lost here the committee. No, the equity committee is still on here. That's good.
Yeah, and we the way we framed it was it's research and develop kind of quote unquote best practices for how local school boards can adopt and have equity committees. Yeah.
I'm wondering, I think it fits on this one, but it may be another. In order to have a diverse leadership framework within a district, most districts have found that growing their own is a great way to diversify the workforce and also to develop new leaders. I don't know if that concept fits in here or maybe with another one. But I do know that many of the districts that are successful use that approach. So it would be the concept of growing a diversified workforce from within the district.
So again, and that and partly here, I'm thinking, again, Chris, I don't really know where the narrowing down is. So if I'm doing this at the wrong time.
No, so what we're going to do, and just real quick, yeah, we can get all the, I mean, let's get the right language out. And we want to make sure that if you can't implement something, maybe your role is to research something, right? So let's get that language out. And then once we have a 10, 12, 15 up there, then we can say, okay, of those 12, 15, these 5 feel like the most important at the moment.
And the ones that we can accomplish, or we have, yeah. Leadership is a funny, I mean, the fact that we have this sort of goal from the state board perspective is a funny thing in general, because to Colt's point, it is, excuse me, Director Gill's point, it is problematic in terms of how much we have role as an authority to take action. Mm-hmm. But if there are other, I feel like getting the ideas out there can help us understand like where connecting the dots. Like if we have an idea that is not within our purview, but we do have an idea or priority around deepening an ongoing relationship with the entities where it is within their purview, then we have an influence, right? And then that there's some overlapping things where it's like within this sphere of influence with COSA and OEA and TSPC and the Educator Advancement Council, these are the things, the topics that we want to make sure keep coming back so that they know they're important from a state board perspective and we can influence. It's going to be up to them whether they take that on within their own strategic plan, but we can be kind of constant reminders. So are there any other things like that? Or Director Gill, are there any things that are within our roles and responsibilities that we haven't thought about yet, because we're within our limited scope of understanding, that can work towards achieving this goal of strong leadership and the metrics that we've set out?
So one thing, just going back up to metrics, and this was one of those binary ones, it looks like there's to me, a strategy to develop and implement a collective leadership framework. Is that within the scope of the state board? And by framework, you'll have to help me define what we mean by that, but is that a deliverable this board can do?
Guessing that question's for everybody, Chris. I'm not exactly sure what is meant by that, but possibly.
Okay.
Probably.
I missed that one coming up, and so I'm not sure what that means either, unless it's talking about something that we've tried in the past where the HEC and early learning and the state board and the Youth Development Commission are meeting on a regular basis with COSA and these others that we've talked about, like and aligning and strategizing together on a few things that sort of show a collective view on what's on having everything be student centered. That's the only thing I can think of. For some reason I can't quite remember.
I think it was a chat box kind of one.
It was, okay.
Yeah. So it feels like that one very closely related to the deepening relationships with these others. There's something about an action you guys take of convening more regularly, interfacing more deeply with these other bodies. And again, maybe from an influence perspective versus we actually implement something, but the board has a good perspective. And as you said, you have, it's one of the boards that has student representation too. So that's a really important voice.
I kind of like that idea of the diversity dashboard as a possibility of something that we could research and maybe get out to districts. It's the second dot,
Yep.
second from the bottom dot up there.
Do you guys have like, is that something the board could take on? Is
I'm not sure, but just kind of in the brainstorm, putting it up there as a possibility, and then we can eliminate what doesn't work.
okay.
So revisiting our success metrics, we had, I think we could put an action of working with the Educator Advancement Council on understanding how we can support maintaining and increasing the number and percentage of staff, teachers, admins, mental health therapists from BIPOC communities, and to Representative Arena's point, from LGBTQ communities, LGBTQ plus support. And then maybe that's been said already, but
If it is, that's fine, because then it's usually an indication of how important it is, and we move it down, right?
true story, true
we
story.
say more than once.
I mean, I think that within our sphere of influence, there's a role that we can play in highlighting through our state board communication, whether it's proclamations or communications, that the best practices around leadership, and maybe that again links with the dashboard, but like being able to sort of highlight and show where, I mean, I didn't know David Douglas, for instance, had an equity committee, or that, Director Russell was instrumental in getting one in Eugene like years and years ago. So like those kinds of best practices, how can the board, researching and developing a plan for the state board, to constantly sort of highlight those best practices when they are happening.
So I put utilize board communication platforms. That can be what exactly that means, to highlight, show equity and diversity best practices. At 1:40, so we have about 5 minutes of these ideas. Looks like we have around 10ish. At 1:40, we're going to go and look at the other group's work and kind of react to that. To prep for the other group coming to our board here, is it worthwhile saying, of the ideas we have here, let's pull some down to say, yes, these feel more important than some of the other ones up in the blue brainstorm? Are the ones that really kind of stand out to you?
Well, the committee, for sure. The one about the equity committee, yes, that one. That feels very tangible and actionable.
We have a couple on here about diversifying our workforce, and so I'm not sure which would be the better strategies around that, but I think that's a priority. I know there's 2 or 3 on here. I'm not sure what the rest of the team would go in terms of moving down.
So I have one here: support the EA, the Education Advancement Council, to research, understand hiring and state district level hiring practices at state district level. Is that? There's that one.
And I think that's very similar to identify and adopt hiring best practices for diverse workforce. And then we have support the EAC to identify better practices for retention. So one is hiring and one is retention.
And again, what we can kind of hone in on going forward is what's that right language that keeps this within the scope of the board? Is it assisting them with research? Is it using some sort of communication platform to influence those types of things? I think what I'm hearing from Director Gill and Chair Howard are there's certain aspects of that process that the state board can play in, and there's others where we're more in a support role.
I think a really important one is the identify ideas / support local districts in bringing student voice to school board.
Yeah. This one right here?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do like the hack early learning, etc., convening on a regular basis to strategize. I do believe that that's board work and it's possible, and it would help us to gain partnership for more strength of effort.
My question to the board would be, are those two separate convenings, or is it bringing the entirety of the group together? Do you know what I mean? Like, one are state agencies, the HEC Early Learning, and the other are, well, except for Educated Advancement Council, are external, TSPC, but they're external, and they are specific to areas of what happens in the specifics of operationalizing the work. So anyway, my question, and we can leave it like this for now, but ultimately the question would be, is it one convening, or are there two separate convenings that the board does on a regular basis, alternating?
Good point.
What about this platform? So part of your influence, part of what it feels like it's of your sphere is, you can communicate in using communication platforms as an area of influence. And I heard about equity and diversity best practices, different than the hiring. We've captured kind of the hiring importance and the role of supporting some of these other organizations that we're there to lead on. But this would be communicating best practices that you're seeing in other school districts or other schools. Does that feel like one that is a top 5? And just so you know, we also have around developing pathway for next generation education leaders. I think that what that role is may be in and out of scope. And then this diversity dashboard, or if another idea pops in too.
I kind of wanted to talk about, Director Gill brought up a really good, like, the CTE courses within schools. And so I know that at my school we have pathways, so you could go into the pathway of law or education, or CTE, which is more of like ceramics, culinary. So if you really if develop pathway for next generation education leaders, you can tie that in within like CTE pathways within schools. But I'm not sure if that qualifies for what you guys can work under, but that was just a thought of mine.
Yeah, that's a good one. It is one of the things that the department runs, is developing those CTE defined areas. So.
Does that capture developing CTE defined areas? Will people know what that means, or do I need to add more to that?
I think it goes with your developed pathways. So if you bring that one down with it, that'll make sense.
Yep. So we're going to go to about 1:45. I'm in kind of communicating with Michelle and her team. Sounds like some priority actions, and obviously we have a couple stickies that we're gonna have to combine at some point and refine. But we have research and develop best practices to require support local school board development of local school board equity committees. Then we have this one around supporting other agencies who lead, right? So they have a little bit more actionable role as it relates to the retention, the hiring, the support of BIPOC, LGBTQ staff, administration, and teachers. So this is kind of an action that you're going to take, figure out what's the best way the voice, the leadership of this board can support what they're focused on. Influence, maybe in some cases. Third one, identify ideas or areas to support local school districts in bringing student voices. So this is governance to school boards or other perhaps committees where formally have a role for student voices, and there's maybe some sharing of best practices there. The fourth one we have around it's a convening, it's a partnership goal here of all these different types of organizations. Heck, early learning, COSA, OEE, TSPC, and the emphasis here is a commitment to developing the relationships. The question obviously we have up there is that all one together, or is these kind of one or two separate groups where you're committed to convening and deepening those relationships? So I just put partnership kind of model up there. And then the final one, kind of developing CTE defined areas, pathways for next generation education leaders.
My only question is around something that I remember hearing in one of our updates. There is department work, staff work already on the equity leadership and equity training. Is that correct, Director Gill?
Yes.
So us not making that a priority doesn't mean that that's not going to keep going forward. It just becomes part of our work.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Here's what I'll do. Already in progress.
And the diversity dashboard already exists too. The EAC annually puts out the educator equity report.
Oh, great.
Good.
Oh, I'm muted. Oh, I'm not muted. Great.
All right. So I think what we're going to do, let me touch base with Michelle and check in on her team. Is they're going to come and all this stuff in orange. They're going to kind of in the green below kind of say, oh, we like that. And they're going to kind of confirm that, or if there's areas to kind of refine that, they're going to do that. And we're going to do the same over on their board. But let me check in to make sure they're ready to switch. No. Okay. How about this? You can tell they're working on something, so I want to let them do that. Any of these, is there an opportunity for us to clarify the language so it's more clear while we're kind of waiting for them to wrap up and us to move over there?
I will defer to Second Chair Wheeler on this, but the real ultimate sort of action that we want to take around hiring is basically to support the EAC in identifying best practices for hiring and retention of BIPOC, LGBTQ plus staff, admin, teachers. Although I think that staff and admin and counselors are not within the educator advancement purview. That's a different other agency. but in specifically around classroom educators that are representative of the students that we are serving. And that part of doing that is understanding the data, the current, having a better understanding of the current state so that we can have a better sort of North Star for the future state.
Kimberly, the EAC is inclusive of administrators and specialists.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, so we kind of refined that to this, but then there's a complementary kind of data piece to this. Did I hear?
Yeah, I think that what I've heard second vice chair Wheeler say is that we don't have a clear picture on the data. We know that there needs to be more BIPOC and LGBTQ plus teachers, but we hear that it's because they're not graduating from programs, and that's not necessarily true. So yeah, is that correct? Did I get that correct?
It is. I don't know, and I don't know if ODE or who manages the regulations around that. So I guess I'm curious about what the hiring practices and rules are in terms of making sure that all jobs are advertised. Where is it in the policies that talk about opportunity or entry-level positions? Or if jobs can just not be advertised and somebody can walk into them because of relationships in the school district, or I just don't have any information around that. And so that's really kind of what's driving my curiosity around hiring practices and where there might be an opportunity for us to look and see where we could drive some of opportunities for our BIPOC families.
Okay. Any other where we could help kind of hone in and clarify before the other team comes over? And it looks like they need 2 more minutes.
I'm starting to think that the partnership model, I mean, I like to leave it like that and let other people also have their input on it, but there's an opportunity for the State Board of Education to step in from an influence standpoint and a convening standpoint to fill the sort of the role of the big picture, right? So here's the thing, our purview is PK through 12, right? So we're not really meant to sort of look at the whole P through 20 continuum, but there's no one looking at the P through 20 continuum. So if we take the lead on bringing all the parties together in order to look at that continuum, that's what that would accomplish, I think, is if I'm understanding the success metric.
Mm-hmm.
That might be too much work for us though, and we have other things to accomplish.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
If we get to this, so as you can imagine, we have 3 of these goals and roughly kind of 5. We have 15 things. The very last step of today before we convene is, are you going to take on all 15 or do kind of a smaller subset, really kind of feel like let's focus on those first. So we're continuing to try and kind of winnow this down. All right, keep thinking. I'm going to check in with Michelle.
And I just, there was a small note from Morgan about bringing people back at 2, but we haven't switched yet. So do you want to ask them for more time?
Let's, let maybe like 2:05, give us a couple extra minutes to review the other folks' work.
Okay, I'll text.
Okay.
Thank you. 205, Chris, is what you said?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Okay, they're ready. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to look over here. So, oh, they moved some stuff. Okay, so let's orient ourselves. Oh, let me actually tell Michelle. In this. This is strategy number 2. So let's just kind of ground ourselves real quick. Goal: strong community and families. Families have the information and support they need to nurture and prepare their children for school. So again, these success metrics, how do we know if we're successful? Some sort of way to monitor improved communication, perhaps frequency of, diversity of different types of communication. We have to hone in on that. Increase amount of, so both frequency and quality of consultation with tribes. Improve connectivity. I think that also came in goal 1. Obviously, students and access and connectivity is important. That's going to also at the family level. You can't really separate those two. Increase digital literacy for families, or support from within families. So I think that a bullet above and that one seem to go hand in hand, but it's both connectivity and just ability to kind of work and educate and receive education in a digital environment. So slightly different. Increase ability and frequency or opportunities for feedback from families. So how do we create a communication channel from families back to the state board, to education system as a whole, and improved access to technology. I think this is a bit more on, do they have access to things like laptops or other technologies they need for a distant virtual learning environment. Also recognizing that there are some who choose not to, and how do you handle that situation? So again, those are the frameworks for success metrics. It looks like I'm just going to walk through what they brainstormed and pulled down. So one of the ideas is an initiative: incentivize, encourage, require greater parent and family engagement. Direct local school boards to increase community engagement. It has in parentheses advisory committees for Student Success Act. Engaging community and families. So ideas around here about engagement. How to influence, incentivize equity for money related to technology investments. And advocate for and support internet access for rural underserved communities. What they moved down, so that was part of their larger brainstorm. It looks like what they moved down in terms of higher priority initiatives or strategies are additional community engagement requirements in order to access ODE funding. The second one, some sort of development of launch of a questionnaire for feedback on how school districts are supporting. So perhaps a way the actual school board would inquire. It's kind of an inquiry process. Research: how can we increase consultation with tribes? Are there existing channels? This looks like some sort of best practice research study, pulling in what's a better way to interface there. Collaborate with Office of Teaching, Learning and Assessment, and Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Group. I don't know if that's within ODE or if that's, I'm not sure where that office sits or those offices sit. And find non-digital ways to connect with students and families. Give more precise guidance, whether through videos from ODE or other forms, on digital literacy to families. So they pulled those down into kind of the 5 priority areas. Now, what we want to do is let's start with the ones they pulled down. And if there's ones on here like, yes, that I agree, that feels like a priority, then we move that down to a green. So let's move what we can down to green. But if we have time too, it also gives you the opportunity to if you have a totally new idea, we can throw that in the green too. So I'll kind of leave it there. Again, let's focus on the orange, and if there's ones on there that feel like absolutely we should be prioritizing that strategy or initiative.
I am looking at the farthest one to the right on give more precise guidance and also find non-digital ways to connect, which I think is a really great idea. When I hear people talking about their current situation and also last year's instruction, I think these two ideas really get at the heart of what a lot of the difficulty is out in the field, so to speak. So something around those two ideas sure make a lot of sense to me, and I really like that idea of non-digital ways. That's something that I really haven't seen explored at all, and I could see that being a very, very important opportunity for us.
So I kind of took that as research identify best practices for non-digital learning methodologies. Again, correct me if I'm just not using the right terms here.
I think you could say for non-digital CDL or comprehensive distance learning. Everyone assumes that distance learning and digital learning are synonymous, and they're not. So, yeah.
Okay.
I would. I feel like seeing it here now. I'm sorry. I wish that I had thought of it when we were in our other group, but I think the tribal consultation and convening and communication with the tribes is more about leadership. There's, that's a state board having conversations with a sovereign government. So it's really, I mean, I think there's a family aspect to it from a cultural perspective, but in terms of consultation, really should be on the other goal, not this one.
How about this? So what I'm hearing is you like it. It's kind of like a yeah, but man, we forgot to do it in the other one. I'm just going to say yes, but maybe goal 3.
Okay.
Good, yeah. So I pulled it down anyways because we really like it.
I know I'm going to realize I'm sounding like a broken record here. But I'm, again, wondering, so we're coming into one more layer, and I'm still not quite sure when we offer more information so that the board understands what's already happening and where they could be additive to the process. So the two that we have moved down now, just as an example, I didn't get to give the entire presentation yesterday of what's happening with the Ready Schools Safe Learners and the comprehensive distance learning guidance, but there's a significant new portion in there that's all around non-digital learning. So I feel like and then in the tribal consultation, our Office of Indian Education has been working with the 9 tribes and with their work group to finalize a tribal consultation manual that I think is second to none, except maybe the one in Minnesota. So I think I'm not quite sure how to help this time be used well. And
I think you called right there. I think that's good. So what I'm going to put is, so if you notice the note over here, it's ODE working on, find op for the state board to be additive to the process, right? So we want to acknowledge that it's really important, and now we got to kind of figure out what exactly the board does versus ODE. And I'm hearing here, maybe it's the same, similar kind of note. Let's see if we can do this there. So it's been recognized as a priority, but we know we kind of have to do this follow-up kind of next level of detail. Does that work for you? Go ahead, second vice chair. Did I hear you?
I appreciate the comments. I still feel a little bit like it should still be on our list, considering there are a number of levels of tribal consultation. So we have like true government to government, where, you know, if we're looking at a consultation manual, we should be talking leadership to leadership. And then we have administration staff to administration staff. So I think it is embedded within all levels. But I think people having a true understanding of what it means and talking about existing channels. The one I really wanted to call out, though, was the additional community engagement requirements in order to access ODE funding. So we could talk all day about all these great ideas about how to engage with tribes, but unless a local school district or an agency is required to do so through funding or finalization of a plan, in my experience as a tribal director for 20 years, we do not get a phone call unless those things exist. So I think highlighting this attachment that we can work on or suggest or recommend for any funding packages, work that we do, that it's a requirement. I would like to continue to have that conversation.
So I heard pull it down. That's like a yes. Is there kind of a clarification to it that we want to add that kind of makes it more precise, or are you comfortable just if we pull it down, it's a priority?
Well, of course, I would like it if we added tribal/community engagement so that was called out specifically. But I can't think of anything else to. It's not just funding. I think it's also approval of plans.
Yeah.
Or required documents by ODE.
Mm-hmm. We've got 60 seconds. I wanted to also call out that I don't understand the teaching, learning, and assessment and equity, diversity, and inclusion, what groups they're talking about there. So that's why I didn't really.
Well, how about this? I'm going to leave it there and just say, didn't understand. That's fine.
Okay. And then I think that the questionnaire feedback on how school districts are supporting families is connected to the community engagement requirements.
Yeah, okay. Technology, guys, you know, you have to learn.
Bring it forward.